So I guess this will be more of like a mentoring class than it will be an actual class. So it will be a lot more engagement, just talking about how the casework actually looks between you and me. Whoops. There we go. Recording's working. All right, so thank you so much for joining me this Saturday. I know there's plenty of other things you could be doing on a Saturday afternoon. Is it still 12? You're out in California right now, right?
Yeah, it's still 12.
Okay, and have the wildfires been impacting you at all?
Yeah, it has. The skies have been very orange and a lot of ash is still falling down on our streets and everything. So
How
really
close
bad. Excuse me?
How close is it to you?
It's more inland, so not that far, but it is affecting air quality out here, making it like they don't want people going outside really. They have like breathing problems.
Okay. And during a time of COVID where, there's still plenty of people with cases, sounds even
like
worse.
the fire closest to me was started by the gender reveal.
I'm not even sure what name I've heard everyone being referring it to as the gender reveal fire, that I don't even know what the actual name of the fire is anymore.
Yeah, I know. They just think of it like that.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty details with the casework. You'll notice that this is titled the Regional Recovery Follow-Up Team. That's because casework is actually a very large umbrella term in the Red Cross. There's sheltered resident transition teams, there's deployment, there's even debt is a form of casework in a way. So this is really just about your duties as a local level caseworker, making those follow-up calls and helping people with their recovery strategies and finding out what they need in order to overcome their situation and keep moving forward. So obviously we've met. I'm Jacob Pliviala, Disaster Program Specialist for Central Arizona. And you can ignore that part where it says El Paso. Our region used to include El Paso, Texas, but that was a change back in April that they joined the rest of Texas. So typically this class is held in person. Since we're not handling it inside the chapter offices at this moment, all of these contents are available on a SharePoint that I'll be sharing with you later. And at the end of this class, if you're viewing this as a recording, please email me at the end to let me know, and I will get you access to everything that we're going to be talking about during this orientation. Adam, for you, at the end of this class, I'll make sure that you get all of these access to all of this information. So that's going to be a copy of these slides, so you can always refer back to it. We have some resources, some referrals that caseworkers have vetted and put together an Excel spreadsheet that you'll be able to get access to. Moving Forward booklet is something that we give every client after we open up a case. It basically outlines to them how to create their own recovery plan. And it's a really good tool as a first-time caseworker to kind of go through that with them. Assistance roadmap just shows how money is given. And narrative documentation guide just reminds you how to write the case notes as a caseworker. We'll be getting into a lot more details about this further on in the class. But before we begin, Adam, is there anything that you're hoping you're actually going to learn during this class and something that I should be focused on?
I think just how to really communicate with clients. I guess that's my main thing, and then how to properly take down caseworking notes and just knowing what to put and communicate with.
Perfect. I have a whole segment for that, so we're going to get, hopefully you'll feel a lot more confident by the end. And then, of course, this is going to be supplement all the shadowing that you'll be doing with our caseworkers starting next week. All right, so you'll be able to hear it from me. I'll give you a few tools in your tool belt to take away with you, and then you'll be able to see it in action with the other caseworkers. So this class, it is meant to be the bridge between the edge training classes, everything that you've been hearing, and connecting it with the actual work that you will be doing. So some of this will be a little bit of a review, but it will be your opportunity to ask any clarifying questions. You'll see a little slide like this where it has a break in units. I always ask if you have any questions or concerns about the previous unit, and we will take a break around unit 5, which is about the 1 hour marker. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. First, casework, we are charged with the follow-up services after most disasters. So on this slide, I really want to draw your attention to, we're here to help establish the recovery plan, help them identify their needs, just help connect them with partners. So everything about here is all about empowering the client. We have a rule of thumb that the caseworker should never be doing more work than what the client is doing for their own plans. Because we really shouldn't be doing the work. We need to make sure that the client knows that they can do all of this without us, that whenever we step away from the case, they're going to have a successful plan moving forward. That way, it's called like creating healthy boundaries with your client. No matter what, whenever we're working in the Red Cross in any of the disaster cycle programs, all of our services must be predictable, repeatable, and consistent, while still being innovative to respond to the client and constituent needs. So I say this because no two disasters are like, even if it's one large fire, like the wildfires in California right now, it's the same event, but two clients, even in the same neighborhood, in those cookie cutter homes that look precisely the same, those two households are going to have wildly different recovery needs. Even in one household in the same family, we may break that up into two separate cases, and their plans aren't even going to be the same. So while we need to be predictable and repeatable in our approach, we still need to be listening to our clients and find out what they actually need so that our services are relevant to their scenario. So I'm going to step back and just talk about the whole disaster cycle process. You've seen this multiple times in your EDGE training videos. Usually the disaster cycle process includes 4 steps, including mitigation after the response phase. But with the Red Cross, because we are volunteer driven and we're outside of the ones actually responding to the disaster itself, we want to focus on prepare, respond, and recover to the community. So in here, I want to just draw your attention how these arrows kind of overlap and meld into each other. That's because even in those separate programs, we still want to be supporting the other phases. When we're out there in the community with any of our preparedness programs, like Pillowcase Project, where we're teaching kids how to create their own emergency plans and make little confident leaders for them, all the way to the home fire campaign, where we're installing smoke alarms. I believe you've actually been on a few of those installation events. We're still getting ready for response. We're showing what people can do to respond themselves and helping support those efforts. When we're in the response phase, we'll actually give immediate financial assistance to clients to start the recovery phase. In fact, everything we do on the recovery end relies on a very successful response. It'd be much more difficult to recover if we didn't respond to their immediate needs. And when we're in the recovery phase, a lot of times clients will have these feelings of fear, loss of control. They feel like there's the world throws too much at them and they really can't handle it. And while it may be true that they don't have any control about what happens to them, preparedness, everything we teach about preparedness shows them what they can do in the face of those disasters. So giving them some of those preparedness plans, like, yes, this has happened. We can make some steps to overcome and show you what you can do moving forward. And here are the tools that you can do in the future to help prepare you for something like this and make you feel a little bit more safe, give you that peace of mind again. we're using those preparedness skills to help with the recovery as well. So we're always doing each one and melding into the other. All of these programs are supported by our 5-pillar processes. That is 1, engage the volunteers and employees. The Red Cross is over 90% volunteer-led and driven. I even have volunteers that I report to. So you can see it's very important for us to engage the volunteers. This is the workforce that is actually moving forward and making the mission happen. This is the ones that are actually keeping the community safe. So that is crucial. Just below that is mobilize the community. I like to say no man is an island, and also no organization is an island. We cannot be expected to take on the world's problems ourselves. The financial assistance we give, it's very small. It's not meant to go very far. We can't buy every single client a new home. We can't put them in a hotel for months on end until they move into a new home. We can't restock their entire pantry. There's a lot of things that we can't do, but that's where the community comes in. We're not alone. There are other agencies that are available to you that we want to make sure they're getting involved with the disaster process and showing what they can do to help the community in the face of disasters. So we need to work with our partners. Likewise, we also need to align with the government. While we are an independent organization, meaning we are free from influence of any third party, we still need to align with the government to make sure we're following laws so that we are keeping our workforce, our clients, and our constituents safe. We also feed information to them so that the government is fully engaged and helping support the community as need be. To that end, just like we're communicating with the community and government, we want to have a good information management and situational awareness internally. So I do my very best to spread information, any sort of updates that are coming out. I try to get that promptly out to the whole workforce so that everyone feels like they are included in the decisions and included in the different changes that are happening. Right now, you'll probably hear a lot of communication about RC Care, which is our new client assistance program, our system that is going to be replacing our current CAS. Everything that you just learned in the EDGE trainings will be going over in November. So I know your internship lasts until December 4th. So at the very tail end of your internship, do be prepared. That is right when we're going to be switching everything over, and I will need your cooperation helping that transition. But you'll get plenty of information coming beforehand to help prepare for that change. The final step is deploying material, resources, and technology. So it's not enough for me just to lay out the expectations and showing what you need to do in order to be a member of the Red Cross and how what sort of information changes are coming through. We need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on giving you the tools in order to accomplish those expectations. That's actually why I create this orientation class, why we have this onboarding system. This is all in order to make sure that the workforce feels ready and engaged to handle the work that we give them. So to that end, if you ever feel like you're in a black hole, you're not getting very much information, or you are getting information but you don't know how to do it and you don't think that you have the tools at hand in order to accomplish it, or it's not efficient, please let leadership know. If not me, then one of the other DPXs, there's Lindsay Matheson and Ryan Zabala. We'll talk more about them in just a moment. Or the leader for your disaster activity. You should typically know your supervisor whenever you go to a new activity. We all will make sure that we're trying to get you the materials to do the task correctly. Any questions about that?
No.
All right. Then let's talk about our region specifically. Again, ignore El Paso. It's not us. This is our region map. So while we are the Central Arizona chapter covering Maricopa, Gila, and Pinal, we're part of a larger region of Arizona, New Mexico, and even a larger division, which is the Southwest and Rocky Mountain Division, covers from Nevada all the way out to Louisiana. That's only important to know if you ever plan on deploying. Whenever we deploy, we start local first. If it's a bigger disaster, we'll go out to the region. If it's a large disaster, we'll go out to the division. And only the biggest disasters that we don't think we can handle within the division will we ask for support from national. I know that's a common question people have about the California wildfires that happen every year. And this one is very unique because you're actually living in California, but it is a different division, and usually California is very can support themselves pretty well. They very rarely ask for national support. So even though Arizona is touching California on the southern part, we still almost never get deployed out to California. So that might be a little bit weird because you live in California, and if you want to help with the wildfires, I wouldn't be able to support you in that. You'd have to reach out to the local California Red Cross. Sorry, Adam.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right, but going a little bit more into our region, our chapter of Central Arizona is actually the capital of our region. So usually that means like if somebody doesn't answer their phone in one of the other chapters, it rolls over to us. Of course, everything's being handled virtually right now, so everything's going to a voicemail anyway. Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. Our organizational chart. So whenever there's new information that's coming through, usually that comes down through our regional disaster officer. She comes out with an implementation strategy and shares that with our senior disaster program manager. That is Cheryl Bender for our region. And she'll work with each of the individual chapters and the disaster program manager specialist for recovery in that area. That's actually me. We talk together how that will look for our chapter. I work with our casework coordinator, Chris Weiss, who then sets out all the deliveries to the supervisors, Pamela Errico, Sandeep Parikh, Chris, and myself. And then we engage with the service associate, and that's you guys. The service associates, are the ones that are actually doing the work, making the phone calls to the clients, and helping out the community directly. Everyone else is just organizing it. Whenever you're not speaking with a client directly, we do have something called steady state, and that's just any non-operational role. And that can be something like community referrals networking, helping come up with what other resources are out there in the community that can help bridge some gaps that clients are experiencing. Like if there's, one great example was there weren't a lot of referrals for transportation, and after a fire, many people, may lose their cars, and it becomes a huge burden for them to actually get around to all the different places that we're referring. Pamela Errico, before she was a supervisor, she did a lot of research about coming up with transportation referrals for people. So that's one thing you can do when you're not speaking to clients directly. Other activities include team building, team capacity building, planning, and training. What do you think I mean is the difference between team building and capacity building?
Team building's probably building with new team members, and then team capacity, probably just training with people you have already.
Very similar, yeah. Capacity, you're right. It's about improving your skills and making sure that you're capable of doing more. Team building, that's more so about the soft skills, about better team cohesion, interacting better together. So we have a few different options about doing that. It's a lot harder in the virtual world, but we've created one. We've always had our monthly meetings that are the second Monday of every month, but now we also have our monthly social hour, which is just an open door for caseworkers to come in for our chapter, talk with each other, and just relieve some stress. Just one other effort we're doing in the face of COVID. So those are two things that you can help with planning for, what else can we do for team building, how can we improve our skills? All those are different things you can do in steady state. There are 3 different main positions: trainee, service associate, and supervisor. As a trainee, my one and only expectation is that you observe and develop your skills. I want to make sure that you feel confident with your role before you take on any sort of cases. The expectation is that it usually takes 3 work shifts in order to graduate from trainee to service associate. That includes the orientation that we're taking right now, but then 1 shift of shadowing a caseworker, and then another shift of the caseworker shadowing you as you conduct your first casework calls. But by no means is that mandatory. If you think that you need more time shadowing or more time with somebody observing your skills, we can definitely arrange that. It's whatever you feel you need in order to get to the next step. That is true even as an intern. Here are all the trainings that you should have already completed to become a service associate. If you ever want to deploy, those are the additional classes required, which you've already taken. Some expectations of the service associate: like I said, they're the ones actually doing the work, so they're the ones initiating the interviews after a disaster. Starts the casework and the planning with clients, finding out what their recovery plan is actually going to be, and connecting them with referrals to meet those personal needs. You're going to assess for internal referrals as well as the external referrals. From your EDGE trainings, can you remind me what is the difference between an internal referral and an external referral?
I'm so sorry, I forgot.
You're good. So an internal referral is any of the resources we have internally, like disaster health services, that can help replace medications, medical equipment, or mental health. Just someone that is a mental health professional that can talk about the stress, the trauma that they're experiencing, find out good coping mechanisms or overcoming maladaptive coping mechanisms to lead them back onto recovery. We'll get more in depth on that in just a few units later on. Caseworkers are also assessing for supplemental assistance. So you're looking for the opportunities where it might be appropriate to give additional financial assistance to clients. I want to point out that this is just assessing. You're not the ones that are determining. That will be the supervisor's role. So you'll look for the opportunity, communicate that with the supervisor. They either approve or deny, and then tell you to reach back out to the client to either go ahead and load the supplemental assistance or try to go in another direction. And you actually emailed me about this, but members are granted Red Cross email address to share your own privacy. I try to do everything possible to keep your Red Cross life and your personal life separate. They should not be intervening with each other. I want to make sure that you have your own life as well. If you ever want to become a supervisor, there are a few additional classes that are required. Obviously, you'll still need to do the SA trainings as well. What you can expect from your supervisor: they do pull a daily report, just making sure that all the cases are being handled, ensuring the continuity of services. Nobody randomly missed a caseworker call and there's clients that are still waiting for a caseworker. They distribute all the cases, trying to make sure everyone has a manageable caseload. The standard is that every shift you have a maximum of 10 cases. If there's a major multifamily fire or there's a huge caseload that happens on a day, we will always contact you and ask for your permission. Make sure you feel comfortable with taking on more than 10 cases before we assign that to you. If you do count your cases and find out you have 11 or more, do reach out to the supervisor and say, hey, this seems like it's a lot. Can we divvy this up? That's never happened. Our supervisors are amazing, but that is something to keep in mind. They always ensure client information is documented correctly and give coaching back to the supervisor or service associates if there's ever something that could be improved. And they're, like I said, they're the ones that are actually determining the need for supplemental direct client assistance. They also stay with direct communication with me as required. They double check if there's any DHS or DMH that's needed during the recovery effort if the caseworker hasn't already made that referral. Again, they are just your safety net. So there is nothing you can do as a caseworker that's going to completely, ruin a case. You will always have that support. They're not here to be a helicopter supervisor. They're just here to, double check and ensure that services are being handled. We are also responsible for supervisor-approved corrections into CAS when an error has been made by DAT or caseworker. This is mainly due to the bank having some issues, and we'll get that. We'll get more into that when I start talking about client assistance card and the assistance we give. Any questions about the expectations or the roles of the different levels of, or I'm sorry, what each of the different roles do?
No.
Okay. Thanks for pardoning me on that word jumble I had right there. All right. So tools and resources. What do you have available to you to accomplish this work? Of course, there is your Red Cross ID badge. If you go onto Volunteer Connection under My Chapter, you can actually request your ID badge and we will mail it right to you. Red Cross attire if you're going to meet with the client in person. This almost never happens, even when we were still in the office pre-COVID. It was very rare that caseworkers in our chapter would meet with clients. But if you ever do, while we don't have a very strict dress code, there are a few things that are not allowed. That includes garments or accessories bearing offensive slogans and product endorsement. Adam, why do you think that we do not allow product endorsement at the Red Cross?
I'm gonna guess that you're trying to sell something, you're really trying to push something on to people, like advertising.
Yeah, it's kind of like advertising. People think that we're sponsored, which is definitely outside of how we want to present ourselves. And also it's about culture, how we can control ourselves. We can control the culture that we set forth at the Red Cross and what we're here to do, those 7 fundamental principles. But we can't control the culture of other companies, and it can really play a major impact to our clients when we're trying to serve them. So let's take Chick-fil-A, for example. They are notorious for being very anti-LGBT community. And if we have Red Crossers that go out to something like the Pulse nightclub shooting, and they had Chick-fil-A on their clothing, our clients could feel very uncomfortable approaching us and may even deny our services. Another one that is really big right now is Black Lives Matter and the Nike swoosh. There are so many instances of people actually burning their own products that had Nike on it, and it ends up becoming very inflammatory just for having that Nike on our clothing. So if we go out into the community and have something like that, and we're trying to be as neutral as possible, we're here to just give services. We're not here to make any sort of commentary. We're here to protect people and make sure they have somewhere safe for them to go and their immediate needs addressed. If they see that and they're going to start some sort of fight or something like that, that's not what we're here to do. We would rather just leave that scene and be here to do what we can. So that's another reason for no product endorsement. If you are working remotely, obviously there are a few things that you will need, such as a phone. Can't make phone calls to clients without it. Laptop, computer, pens and notebook to take notes is very helpful. And Google Voice or any other number hiding app is great. I like Google Voice for a few reasons. One, it gives you a fake phone number that you can call from, and the clients will see that number, and they can still reach back to you if you should want. Or you can set up a separate voicemail than your normal one that says, "Hi, you've reached Jacob Pliviama with the Red Cross. I volunteer on Wednesdays. If you can wait until Wednesday, please leave a message. If not, please call our casework line, la da 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 da, and leave a message there. A caseworker on call will reach back out to you." So that way, clients still get served and your personal life is not interrupted. Highly recommend that if you have not downloaded it already. Other case supplies that we provide to you. The Moving Forward booklet, like I said, that is a book that is a how to recover that we give every single one of our clients. I do recommend in your free time to read through that booklet and see what sort of questions you should be asking. It has things like a checklist of things to think about after disaster, phone numbers for who should be called, like the landlord, fire department, insurance, that sort of thing. It has a calendar where clients can set up their own appointment dates. It has a what's it called? A budget where they can track all their different spending. A little known fact, it is after disaster, any expenses you spend on your recovery is actually tax deductible. So that, while it won't help clients immediately, that could be a huge saving when taxes come around and they can get a rebate back. So definitely encourage them to write down their expenses. Casework guide shows you how finances are given, how to write your narrative, and Chris Weiss has created so many different quick tips that show you how to use CAS, and just refreshers after this, the EDGE trainings and after this orientation, where you can look up and just read step by step what to do for all the different things, tracking referrals, how to give supplemental assistance, closing cases, opening cases, all that. If you ever did go into the office, we had 3 different folders of red ongoing incident information, which is about our communications talking points about all the different disasters we're having. Purple standard and procedure guidance that is my entire brain downloaded on the exchange. Everything that I answer is just pulled from the exchange from the standards and procedures, so you can actually read it yourself. And the green printed version of the community resources, in case internet is ever down, you can always refer to that so that the clients still get served. Speaking of which, these are some resources that I do highly recommend you copying down and then bookmarking, because these are resources that you'll be using pretty frequently during your casework calls. So I am going to pause the presentation, and we're going to take a look at this for a moment. So CAS, that is our client assistance system. That's what you're going to be using every day to do your cases. At the end of this orientation, Adam, I'm going to walk you through getting your own account. We're going to walk through Aunt Bertha and the Casework SharePoint here. So let me stop. All right, Casework SharePoint. All right, this is our Casework SharePoint. This is the home page. It has some of the most recent activity on it. A few quick links. These are what you'll be using fairly frequently. Schedules is a very important one. Go in here. This top one, this PDF, the DAT schedule. You also get this emailed to you because you're on the response team as well. But this shows you all the different response on-call people. As caseworkers, you'll most often use this for DHS and DMH, see who's on call that day. So today's Saturday. If I was talking to a client and they needed mental health, I would call Ronald Mullick. He would go and reach out to them. Or if they needed to get prescriptions replaced, I would call Linda Hicks. DHS also has a 12-hour day shift. So 8 to 4 p.m. during office hours, if there is a day shift, call that number first. but after office hours, just call the backup person. You'll also be able to see the casework schedule. So here, Chris put this out week of September 13th. Here's all the caseworkers that are on call. When you are no longer a casework trainee and you're fully a full member, you'll let me know what days you intend to do casework calls, and we'll put you on the schedule. Up here is the supervisor. So this is who you'll be referring your cases to whenever it needs a review, or who to call in case you need advice or supplemental assistance. There's also contact information, so that blue is the supervisor, so you can call the supervisor from there or email them. All right. Going back. Aunt Bertha, I'm going to pause that for a moment. I'm just going to open a new tab for her. But this is basically a Google for all sorts of community resources. It probably will be your go-to in most cases. Casework Recovery Toolkit, again, this is just the standards and procedures. Download it. Talking points for ongoing incidents. I think I haven't updated this very recently. It's pretty much just the coronavirus stuff, but communications also emails this information out. Territory leadership map you won't use since you're just remote. If you ever want to refer back to this orientation, it's right here. Going to documents is where we have all of our different resources. We do have educational materials for just ongoing continuing education. Anytime we have a meeting and we have some sort of presentation, that presentation gets saved here as well. So you can see a lot of the other things that we've taught our caseworkers in the past, such as understanding home insurance is a really popular one. Definitely recommend understanding that for casework. We've talked about deployments. We talked about ICCT, which we'll talk about in this orientation a little bit later. Tips on how to pass physical review. Rainbow document is something you probably will use pretty frequently as well. Rainbow, it's just referred to Rainbow document because of these tabs. It's meant to be printed out and cut and you flip through them really quickly. But this teaches you how to replace pretty much anything that was lost during a fire. So cleaning on wood materials, fabric materials, or destroyed currency. It is actually possible to get currency replaced by the government if it was destroyed in a fire. There just has to be some conditions. How to replace your vital records. Again, tax deductions, like I said before. So this is a really good document to have. Orientation document, so that's the folder that I'll give you at the end of this class. But the one that you'll be using most often is going to Central Arizona chapter. And then whatever county your client lives in, you want to go into that. Usually it's going to be Maricopa for us. And this is all the different resources we have available to us. This is the main referral list that constantly gets reviewed and added to. So here it's separated by category. This category is emergency assistance. Usually that's like financial assistance, rental, utility, shelters, food banks, dining rooms, a short description of what they actually do, contact information. And you can actually filter this by city if you need to. Text filters equals, let's try Mesa. Well, here's all the Mesa referrals. Just be sure if you ever see that it like looks wonky and looks like really small, usually that means someone before you had filtered it. So you just go back here and clear the filter. and you'll get to the master list. All right, so that's it for the Casework SharePoint. Now I want to talk about Aunt Bertha, good old Auntie B. So again, it's like a Google for community resources, and it filters by zip code. So let's take a look. Actually, you know what? Adam, what's a California zip code? Someone that out in California that might need help.
90621.
So just in that zip code, there are about 3,500 programs that are out there to assist clients. What's something you think that someone would need in the face of that wildfire?
They would probably need like food supplies, maybe, or water.
Let's see, food, emergency food. Here, there's COVID response. Let's see something that's not a COVID-19 response program. Okay. Disaster recovery services from the Buddha Zhu Shi Foundation. Let's take a look. So this seems like it might be good. Let's get a better look at the program. They provide daily necessities, medical care, emergency cash, food, and water. Exactly what you were asking for, right?
Right.
So we could do, it gives us their website so we can look more into it, see what else, if we want to verify if this is going to be a good referral. Shows us where they're located, all their different contact information. Once we've determined that this is a good program to send them, I can share this with them. I could either email this to the client, I could text this to the client, or I could even share it on Facebook. If you send it as a text, they'll get it saying, "Hey, this is Aunt Bertha. It will just give them the link to this webpage, so they'll be seeing what you're saying." And they said that your caseworker Adam shared this with you. So again, you don't have to share your personal information, and it gets it right out to them. Pretty neat. All right, let's go back to this. I'm just going to do this orientation. Nice. Any questions with those tools?
No.
Whoop. Excellent. So now I'll go over assigning cases, how you actually get your cases. Like I said, the supervisor pulls a daily caseload report, and they assign cases to whoever is on call or that shift caseworker. The decision is based off of the caseload of the caseworker, the client needs, and caseworker specialty. So if a client is a veteran, and I have a few caseworkers that also work with our service, the armed forces, so they are more specialized in those type of services, and they can probably connect with them pretty well. I would connect them with those caseworkers. But overall, the goal is that we're going to provide that initial follow-up for clients within 72 hours of the case being opened. So if a case opened on Monday and my caseworker that works with SAF is on Friday, even though that could be a really good way of supporting the client's needs, I'm still going to have someone follow up immediately on Tuesday, and then maybe I'll move the case to that Friday caseworker later on. 9 times out of 10, whenever you get assigned a client, that client is going to stay with you throughout their recovery phase until you're ready to close the case, unless we have to move cases around for in order to manage caseloads. Do expect to keep your your client week after end. There are only a few times that you should be reassigning the case back to your supervisor. All other times you should just be reassigning the case back to yourself or whenever you're going to call them next. But you should reassign the case after the initial follow-up call. The supervisor has to do an initial review, just making sure that everything was put into the case correctly. So they have to get it back and then they'll give it back to you if it's appropriate. If your case is going to be closed, again, your supervisor has to do a final review, making sure that nothing was missed during the whole recovery time and that it's appropriate to close the case at that time. Whenever you're requesting supplemental assistance, I will say most of the time when you're requesting supplemental assistance, you're going to reach out to your supervisor immediately and get a response right away. So you might not have to reassign it to the supervisor. Usually the client wants an immediate answer if you're investigating if additional financial assistance will be necessary. So it's very rare that like someone's like, oh, you know what, I do need additional money, but it can wait, and you just assign it to a supervisor and then they'll check it out, approve it, and give you the note back. 9 times out of 10, you're going to call the supervisor on that. The last time that you'll really reassign your case is if you're ever going to miss your standard shift, like if you're going to be sick or if you want to take a vacation. Please note that I don't want any volunteer or intern to feel like they are stuck with once you're in and you can't get out. We're not going with the gang mentality here. It is my duty as a DPX to make sure that we have a strong workforce that is able to take up your load in case you need a break, whether it be, it's getting emotionally tiring or you want vacation, you want to deploy, whatever, or your internship ends and you don't want to stick with the Red Cross, whatever it means. Anytime that you're going to be leaving and you're not going to stick around for your standard shifts, reassign to your supervisor and they'll redistribute the cases. While you do have access to the schedule and you'll see when other caseworkers are working, please never reassign cases directly to another caseworker. That is how we lose cases. You don't know what's going on with that other caseworker's schedule and situation. They may call last minute and not be able to assist, and we might not catch that until later on. So please only ever reassign cases back to the supervisor. Any questions there?
No.
Excellent. All right, now we're going to actually get into how to prepare for the call, and then we'll take a break before we actually talk about doing the work. So before you actually make any phone calls to the client, be sure to familiarize yourself with the case and the client family. Review their demographics so you can start figuring out what are some eligible resources. Like if they're low-income family, obviously there's going to be a lot more community resources available to them. If they were, rather than if they're very well off, that might not be appropriate to give them certain resources. Please read through the narrative carefully so you can discover what they currently have, or what needs are still ongoing, and what information is missing that you'll need in order to help them come up with a better plan. And then start preparing what referrals will be appropriate based off of all of that information. The client assistance cards, that's the debit card that we give out to clients with the financial assistance. They're going to have questions about it, so I want to make sure you have the basics down. It is a type of prepaid debit card. They can use it anywhere that uses MasterCard. And all cards are loaded and reloaded through CAS, our client assistance system. Any changes to the CAC must go through the primary client. This does include supplemental assistance. If they have identified where additional financial assistance will benefit the recovery, we need to make sure the primary client is the one requesting it. There's been too many times where an uncle of the family says, oh no, I need that money. We approve it and then they disappear, never to be seen again. We speak with every single client about, what it means to be a primary client and do you feel comfortable with this person being in charge of everybody's money? So that's who we have the approval to handle that account with. There's also a PIN number assigned to the debit card. It's on their envelope when they first get it. If they ever want to change the 4-digit PIN number, they can do so. They just have to call the bank on the back of the card, and they have to verify their identity using the information we used when we first opened the case. Even if we got any sort of typos or any sort of incorrect information, they have to use the incorrect information to verify their identity with the bank. Even if we fix it on our end, the bank still only gets the initial information. That's another reason why we have supervisor-approved corrections, where the supervisors are the only ones that choose that change information on the case. This is what the debit card looks like. Notice down at the bottom it says Red Cross Client. This means that the cards are not tied to the client in any real meaningful way. So if they ever lose the debit card, or if it gets stolen and all of the money is used up, it's as if someone stole cash right from the client's pocket. We can't replace that money. There's really nothing we can do. It sucks. We can replace the card if there's still money on the card. We can replace the card and give them transfer the money from on the card to the new card, but replace the money, it's gone. This is the letter that comes with the card. Again, it has our logo, US Bank logo, and the PIN number right there. Since it is a US Bank, if they go to a US Bank at an ATM, they can withdraw all the money and they won't be charged any fees. They can go to any ATM and pull out the money, but they will be charged ATM fees for non-US Bank accounts. One thing I want to draw your attention to, this second paragraph down at the bottom says, this card will close within 60 days. Any unused funds will be returned to the Red Cross. So this is another reason why we want to have all the cases completely done within that 60-day time frame. Once the card is closed, there is no reactivating it. I can't even get the money back at that point. It goes back to our general fund, and we can't redistribute those funds. So if we're approaching that time, after the 1 month period, if the case is still open at that time, which we should have closed by 30 days, but if it is still open, we need to make sure they know, please go to a bank and just take all the money off, because at that point, it might be a use it or lose it situation. Now, while we do say that the money given is a gift of the Red Cross, and we don't put any stipulations on how they use it, the bank does limit how the card can be used. So what I like to say is, if you saw it in one of the Hangover movies, it's probably not going to work on that card. So things like liquor stores, cigar stores, dating or escort services, which there was a lot of funny stories before that was blocked, massage parlors, casino gambling, court fees, all that, the card will automatically decline. Please note this is for merchant categories, not what is actually being purchased. So the most common time that you'll run into this as a caseworker is when a client goes to a convenience store and they try to buy some food, just some snacks, just to get a little bit of something. They don't even have alcohol, but the card is not working. That's because the convenience store is listed as a liquor store, and there's just nothing we can do. You just have to ask the client to go to another location. Any questions about the card?
No.
All right. So with that, we're basically at the 1 hour point. I'm going to let us take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 1:05. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds good.
Excellent. Then we'll start talking about how, actually doing it and having those communication conversations. All right, and we're back. I'm back.
I'm here.
Awesome. Hope you're feeling invigorated, fresh, loosen up. Wildfire fighting ready?
Yeah.
Does so seeing the wildfires every year, does that like invigorate you for your like your career path and like what you're aiming to do?
I do want to get into wildfire fighting, but I think my main goal is just be like a regular structural firefighter.
Is that a different team?
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually. I mean, regular firefighters do go in wildfire, but there are like specific. I don't know if I heard like the hot shots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's like a specialized team that specializes in wildland firefighting.
Got it. With my role, I typically only work with the local response since I'm Blue Skies. But on the times that I did work with the on the wildfire side, like I didn't really know that it was a different team.
Yeah.
Feel kind of embarrassed. You taught me something.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to actually be talking about providing assistance, and this is where a lot of your questions about the communication, like how we actually interact with clients, will come out. So my very first recommendation, the best advice I can give is to set the expectations early. Red Cross Recovery Services assist the client in establishing their recovery plan, but and connect them with a path to success. One thing that I like to tell all of our caseworkers is that we may not be able to make the client whole again, but we can show them the path to a new normal. With COVID-19 going around, there's been a lot of talk about new normal. What does new normal mean to you?
New normal is just trying to adapt to what we need to do. Like we have it's just like how we're gonna have to do things now, even though it's different what we usually have done. But eventually, we can get used to it.
Absolutely. I like that. It's about adapting and overcoming. So, after any sort of trauma, whether it be disaster-based or elsewhere, there's never really going back to the way things were before. It's never going to be perfectly like how it was. There's going to be some things that you'll have to adapt to. There's in a fire, which is the one that we respond to most often. There's going to be sentimental pictures that were lost. They may have to move, and it's going to be a completely new house. But change doesn't have to be bad. There will be a lot of letting go, but there will be a lot more, new things to take a hold of as well. So our job is just to show them the path to that new normal and how to, accept it a little bit better and adapt to it. So to do this, we're going to be probing for information concerning their recovery plan. What is it that they intend to do, and how can we make sure that's a success? We need to make sure that we're asking about their essential needs and ensuring that it's being addressed. This is something that I was very surprised of when I was a volunteer still and I was starting out having these conversations. I would be working with the client. I remember one in particular where we were making great progress every week. Like anytime that I gave them a task, they were right on it. Start using the referrals to find new housing. We got supplemental assistance approved, and everything was going very well. And then one week, everything just stopped. And like, they said, "I'm sorry, I haven't done anything that we talked about last week. I haven't been able to work out with my employer, this or that. It's just been really hard to focus because I haven't eaten anything since the fire." And I was just flabbergasted. I just was really taken back because that was such a basic need. I had falsely made the assumption that like if it was a concern for them, they would tell me. and food is such a major concern. But the thing is, the clients have never gone through this before. They don't know what the Red Cross can actually do and how we actually operate. They're kind of, and oftentimes they're in such a state of trauma. Like, it's hard to focus regardless of anything with the fire or whatever disaster they're facing, that like their own common sense will be right out the window. So it was really my duty to ask them, do you have food and do you have clothing? I never directly asked that question, and because of that, the client never promptly gave that information to us. This is also very common with a lot of our clients. This is the first time they've ever experienced any sort of disaster, and it's very odd to ask for help. And sometimes, especially in American culture, it can be very humiliating to ask for help. So unless we directly ask them, hey, do you have this stuff? They may not actually proactively give it to us. So we need to do our due diligence on making sure that that's being addressed. Once we know what's going on, then we can connect them with community agencies that can bridge the gaps in their recovery and start looking for where it would be appropriate for additional financial assistance. When you're actually having the conversation, the interview, you always want to make sure you're respecting their privacy. So in the notes and the narrative, you want to keep it as brief as possible, just enough to share with other caseworker what's going on and what we should be thinking about, but maybe not taking like medical information should absolutely stay out. Maybe some family drama doesn't need to be in there exactly. We want to make sure we're identifying their unmet disaster cause needs. Why do you think that I emphasize disaster cause needs?
Because that's what's affecting them the most. So like so if it's like, I guess, if they're missing something, I don't really know.
Yeah, so affecting them the most. Let's take a look into that. Like, one, I think what's affecting a client the most can be subjective, right? They may have had a fire, and that may have, maybe it was an apartment fire and their house itself wasn't impacted, but they got the power shut out and they're out. But they are also having, relationship issues with their girlfriend, and they're talking about getting couples counseling. Do you think it's appropriate for us to get involved with that?
No, this is personal.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean by disaster cause needs. We're going to be working with a diverse clientele, and they're going to have many different needs that are outside of the scope of the Red Cross. And maybe it might not be appropriate for us to get involved with everything that's concerning them. Some of the time it will be a little bit more ambiguous, but we have to ask, is this problem a result of the fire? Case in point, we had another client where it was a multifamily fire, a apartment fire, and there was like 5 different units impacted, and the landlord did have another property that they could just move everyone into. So almost every single one of our clients just moved into a new property, except for one that was denied. And they're asking for us to give them $1,200 to move into the new unit. And that is like, that makes absolutely no sense. No other client had that need. Why are you asking for $1,200? And it came out that before the fire even occurred, they were $1,200 past due in rent. So the landlord was already going to evict them even before the fire. Do you think it's appropriate? And so yes, that $1,200 is preventing them from moving into a new unit. Do you think it's appropriate for the Red Cross to pay that sum?
I don't think so, because that was their own problem before the fire even started.
Exactly. But it is still our concern on making sure they have a recovery plan. It just so happens that they can't move into that new place because that pre-existing condition blocks that route. So we need to find out what other. We went back to that client and asked them, okay, so you know what? We can't help you with that $1,200. We're still committed to making sure that you have a good plan. Let's talk about some other options. And instead, we referred them to, what is it called? Oh no, I forgot. Take Charge America, which is a nonprofit organization that helps with like debt relief uh, and credit planning. So they're able to come up with some sort of payment plan with the previous landlord, and we gave them a helped with supplemental assistance for a down payment on a new apartment. So that ended up being their recovery plan instead. We focused on just the disaster cause need, which is the lack of housing. What do we need in order to get them to housing? That option isn't appropriate. We can't give them 1200 for that. That's pre-existing. Let's find another option. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. Of course, we want to identify the client's own resources. Everything's about empowering the client first. We should not be the go-to. We shouldn't be using supplemental assistance for every single client. We need to ask them, do they have their own insurance? Have they been supported by their friends and family? Do they have their own source of income? What can they put towards their own plans? And only use our assistance when their resources deplete. We also want to mobilize the community. This can be a little bit like harder to grasp as well, or it feels a little bit awkward. You know, there's some times where a client does have a disaster cause need and is impacting their means of moving forward, and it's something that our financial assistance, our supplemental direct client assistance could overcome. But there are community agencies that could also bridge that gap, and it is more important for us to make that referral and connect them with that external agency to overcome that need, because of that mandate about mobilizing the community. If we never give the opportunity for other agencies to get involved, they can actually lose their funding because they're not being utilized, and they could actually just go under. So us making these referrals isn't just about helping the client, it's also about helping the partner that we refer, making sure they have an opportunity to engage with helping the community. So it's very important we still do that. We only provide advocacy as needed and where appropriate. Harkening back to your training with Edge, what is advocacy? What does that mean to you?
Advocacy, it's just giving advice when like oh, like I have a problem, like maybe what do you think, I guess.
I want you to take that one step further. What happens, like they've taken your advice, they're doing it, you've given them referrals, they are reaching out to your referrals, and they're still being blocked out off like for no fault of their own. They are legitimately trying and things aren't going well. What's the next step?
You probably making like recommend them like a particular policy or something like that. Like give them.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. You go ahead.
Advocacy is when you actually start doing work on their behalf. So this is only there when the client is legitimately taking your advice, they are making an effort, and there's something going wrong with it, and that's when we can use the name of the Red Cross, put that power behind the request, and start getting the ball rolling again. So best example that I've had is actually from one of our previous ASU interns. There was a student, an ASU student, that had a fire in her dorm, and she lost her books. She had to move to another dorm, and ASU was not wasn't helping replace the books, even though she was calling them and saying, this was going on. She, well, you're gonna have to pay for those books in full again. And also they weren't helping move her to a new unit because of the fire. she wasn't going to school, but she couldn't go to school without having a place to stay. So it was kind of a catch-22. So what the the client was making all the phone calls. She was relaying that back to our volunteer or our intern. So our intern, she ended up calling student services. She worked out a way of getting the books replaced through no cost of us or the client. And then she put in the request with student services like, hey, you know what, the student wants to go back to ASU, but they can't do it until they have a place staying. So if you don't make an exception for her to stay there, she will never go back to school, and you won't get your funding for the tuition. So they made an exception, but they only had one place that they could the student could actually go, which was going to be more expensive because of at the previous dorm, she didn't have to pay for parking, but at the new dorm, she did have to pay for parking, but it would only be for 3 months. So we took the amount of what it would be for those 3 months, and we gave supplemental assistance to pay for the parking for that 3 months instead. That way she could move back into the dorm comfortably and finish out the semester. So that's where advocacy can be helpful. Is when the client is doing everything right, but these third-party agencies are not helping for one reason or another, and the name of the Red Cross could probably help move that along. They needed the Red Cross to actually say, you know, this is a genuine need. Please help the client. So that comes up with helping the clients problem solve. Everything that we do is all about problem solving, you know, brainstorming with the client, making those weekly follow-up calls to say, you know, where are you at now? What sort of obstacles have you run into? How can we overcome that? Any questions with that?
No.
Okay. So this comes down to handling the call like actually the conversation itself, how we actually, you know, make those communications. So first and foremost, we want to allow a safe space where the client feels comfortable to share their story, showing empathy throughout the call, and then guiding the conversation to focus on recovery plan using this model right here. So this is the client caregiver relationship model. I actually stole this from suicide intervention training. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's the connect before we understand, before we assist model. Why do you think it's important to understand before we try assisting?
Try to understand, because you want to see what we can narrow down. It will kind of make it easier to see, like, okay, like this person has this problem, like I can understand and like try to narrow down the solutions.
Absolutely. I like to harken this down, like you've heard the phrase mansplaining before, right?
Yeah.
It's not just mansplaining, it's really just like anytime somebody thinks that they're an expert on something and they start making assumptions, you know what an assumption does, and they start explaining what someone should do before they even understand their situation. The client probably has that those concerns already addressed, and if we just come in rolling over them, it can look very unprofessional. So we need to ask those questions, exactly what you were talking about. Really understand what they're going through so that our assistance is relevant to their needs. Why do you think it's important to connect before understanding?
When you connect, I think the client will have a better connection with you. It'll make them feel more comfortable talking, and then that leads to better understanding, and then like they'll kind of open up more.
Spot on. Absolutely. You know, they're not going to feel comfortable sharing everything with you unless we have a good foundation, a good rapport built up. Plus, more so than anything, you'll find that on your phone calls, the biggest assistance that we can give as a agency is just a open ear, a shoulder to lean on. Probably the connecting portion is probably the most important phase out of this entire model. And I would really say that the green assisting, that's probably the smallest sliver of everything that we do here. Most of the time, when the biggest part is connecting, making sure that they feel comfortable, and just when we're having the conversation, trying to understand their situation, the client is also gaining a better understanding of their own situation, and they'll come to assist themselves after that. After you start asking, like, okay, do you know how to replace your vital records? Like, oh wow, you're right. I didn't even think about that. You know what? I can do that. A lot of times when we start asking about their needs, they're like, you know what? I didn't think about that, but I know how to do it. So assisting ends up being the smallest part. Now, with this model, our role is really to respond to wherever the client is at in this model. So up at the top, these are the phases that the client will be going through. And the bottom is our task with how we're supposed to respond. It's presented kind of linearly, but it's meant to be more cyclical. And you'll end up jumping around, especially if you find out you try to transition to the next phase and the client isn't ready. We need to follow their lead. They are in charge of this process, but we are the guide trying to get them to the assistance stage. So what does this look like? First, when we're talking with the client, we want to be listening for invitations and explore them. An invitation phrase, this is a key one, invitation phrase, is any communication that demonstrates a want to share more. So this could be body language, it could be how they say it, or it could be specifically what they say. Have you ever, I mean, just when you're out with buddies and, you know, someone's looking at their meme, or I'm sorry, looking at their phone and they read a meme, they just start bursting out laughing, like almost too loud, like it's noticeable laughing. And really they want to share it with you, right?
Right.
They kind of want you to ask, what's so funny? Like if you don't ask them, they start going, haha, man, this is really funny right here, this one. Man, I found a really good meme. And like if you keep on ignoring them, they kind of repeat it, right?
Right.
That is an invitation phrase. They're wanting you to ask them what's so funny. They want you to expand on that conversation. Same thing happens with clients. It could be something like, wow, I just never thought this could happen to me. It could be them repeating themselves, saying the same thing over again. That's because they haven't gotten it off their chest and they want to talk about it more. It could be something where they allude to something, but they don't say it directly. That's an invitation phrase. Or it could be something with how they're presenting themselves, like a lot of, you know, lack of focus and kind of, you know, holding something back and not ready to go further. It's like they're asking like, hey, are you feeling okay right now? Like, do you want to talk a little bit more? All those are invitations that they're asking you to explore that. Once you've established a connection, you have a conversation going, it's going to be your duty to ask about the recovery plan. Down here at the bottom, it looks very awkward, and these text box at the bottom, those are just meant to show you what like the goal of these questions, but you will never ask this word for word. So it asks down here, are we agreed that we're ready to work on your recovery plan? I can't see it. My toolbox is in the way and I can't get it to go away, but I think that's what it says. Obviously, you won't ask that word for word. It'd probably be something more like, you ready to talk about you know, the next steps, what you have to do to move forward? And they'll usually say yes, and then we can start talking about, okay, what do you have at your current resources? What do you currently have available? What have you already thought about for your plans? And it's our task to listen to those and get a good understanding of what they can do themselves, and find out what obstacles do they have, what additional needs do they have to address in order to move forward, and review that with them. Are we agreed there are additional needs you cannot bridge by yourself? Again, don't ask it like that. It'll probably be something more like, okay, so from what I'm hearing, it sounds like your plan is to do this, but we're still working on finding this. Okay, let me see if I can find any some referrals for there, some assistance that can help with that task. And that's where we contract some referrals. Why do you, so when I say the word contract, what does that word mean to you?
Contract?
Mhm.
Anything we can anything we can contract to you?
Yeah, contracting, or what does, just the word contract, what is a contract?
A contract is like an agreement.
Yeah, it's a mutual agreement between two parties. What are someone going to do and what are we going to do? With our referrals, we are contracting the client to follow up with those referrals to make sure they are actually reaching out to those agencies and requesting the assistance. The contract on our side is that we've done our due diligence at reviewing their needs and ensuring that the referrals we give are relevant to what they've been talking about. We, looked at Aunt Bertha, we researched these resources, and we think it's going to be a good fit for what they're facing. That's our contract to them. And then we want to follow up with any sort of commitments. So the commitment, again, is the referral from the client side that they've went out, they've spoken to the landlord, they've initiated their insurance, they've called the community agencies to get their assistance. Our commitment is that we are going to follow up with the client or provide advocacy if we had promised that. So it is definitely a two-way street on this recovery plan. So we're going to check what resources the client can do on their own, ask if they would like additional support, and ensure the clients understand what is expected in their next steps. It doesn't do us any good to have a full conversation if at the very end of the conversation, the client doesn't even know what they're supposed to do, right? The last thing I'm going to share with you, and I would like you to jot this down as well. I would like your help in spreading Ebola. Ebola is an acronym. It stands for empathy, benefit, ownership, love, and acknowledgement. So whenever you're speaking with a conversation, now I want to make sure that you get all of these tenets somewhere in your conversation with your client. Obviously, empathy should be there throughout the entire call. What's the difference between empathy and sympathy?
Empathy is and sympathy. Sympathy is like, you're like just really feeling bad. Like you're just, I don't want to say like maybe like pity, but like the empathy, like, you're with them. Yeah, sympathy, like you're just, I'm like, I feel so bad for you. Like the empathy, like, hey, like, I'm here for you. Like if you need like my assistance.
Absolutely. Sympathy is like understanding what they're going through, but empathy is really knowing and being there with them. I like to give this illustration of someone has fallen down a hole. Sympathy is standing at the top of the hole looking in like, man, that's a deep hole. It's going to suck trying to climb out of that. Empathy is getting down into the hole, is like, wow, it's dark down here. This looks really scary. Let's see how we can get out of here. So definitely use empathy throughout the call. Acknowledgement, you want to make sure that you're acknowledging what the client is saying. It can be parroting back what they're saying. That is really good if you haven't really done any sort of like customer service work before and you're just kind of learning how to have these sort of conversations. Parroting is a good beginner's tool. but I would really love if you could, take it the next step, acknowledging taking what they said and putting it in your own words to make sure that you do actually understand what they're saying. Then towards the end, when you're actually getting ready to see how you can assist, ownership is how you as the caseworker are going to take an active role in their recovery plan, saying something like an I statement. I or the Red Cross. The Red Cross wants to be here so that you don't have to go through this alone. I'm going to look up some resources in the community and see how we can help you. I want to make sure that you have the peace of mind knowing that you're going to be in good hands. Some sort of I statement. Benefit is what do they get out of listening to you? I want to give you that peace of mind knowing that you can trust the Red Cross. I want to make sure that this will be as easy as possible it can be for you, or I want to make sure that you're feeling listened to and your concerns are going to be addressed. Some sort of benefit. And finally, love is just any sort of thank you statement. You want to encourage the good behaviors clients are having and let them know what they're actually doing right, especially during a dark time like this where everything feels so wrong. Just giving them that appreciation for the good things that are going on can mean the world to people. You'll notice when a lot of the times clients will feel like, I've never had to go through this before. I don't even know what I'm doing. And just saying thank you, like, I see you're being proactive. Thank you for being so proactive and taking the initial steps. That you'll notice immediately as soon as you say a thank you note, like, well, of course, I can't just sit here and let, just have nothing happen. I have to get something done. Their attitude changes drastically as soon as you acknowledge the good things that they are doing, even if it's something as simple as thank you for taking my call so we can get this started. That triggers to them, you're right. I'm doing something active in my own recovery. Make sure you are finding what they're doing right and appreciate that them for it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So here are a few example questions for you to help, like if you don't know what to say, these are always good ones. What can we do for you right now really shows, empowers the client, let them decide how we want to get involved. Do you have insurance? Again, that's just like one of those check mark questions. You're asking if they have the landlord help. Remind them of the balance on the card. You always want to do that, especially after like the first call, and before you close a case, you always want to remind them how much is left on the card, if anything. What are your plans? Open-ended questions are really good. Let's them be in the driver's seat. I like this last one. I know this is overwhelming right now. I'll check back with you soon. When we talk next, please think about what you would like to discuss. It can be this, this, or this. This is all about getting those commitments. You're showing empathy. You're showing that you understand it is overwhelming, and all they really need is time. So even in those conversations where we haven't made any progress on their recovery plan, sometimes clients just need a little bit of a breather moment to kind of get their head straight. And that is moving forward on the recovery plan in and of itself. But we want to make sure we're still gearing it towards the next steps as well. Like, hey, you need some time, that's good, but we can talk about anything else that you're concerned, housing, food, and you're reminding them the other things that they can think about when they're ready. You're giving them the time to get ready. But you're still making the commitments. You're following up, you promise to follow up with them, and they're promising to think about what they need to do. Now, supplemental assistance. We've talked about it quite a lot, and usually there's a lot of questions people have about supplemental assistance. Before I even get into this, what sort of questions or concerns do you have about additional supplemental assistance that we give?
Just knowing which letter they like. So, does this person need supplemental B or C? I think that's my biggest question right there.
The tiers, how much to resolve it? Absolutely. So the biggest thing with supplemental is that it is only meant, we can only give it out if it's actually going to fulfill their need. So if someone needs $500, we can only give a maximum of $300 currently. So if we gave them $300 and they could not get $200 from friends or any other community resource, I can't approve giving them financial assistance, supplemental assistance, because it wouldn't help them. They would just get that money, they would spend it on, whatever, and ultimately they would still be in the exact same situation that they are before we gave the financial assistance. It wouldn't actually help them. But on the flip side, if someone only needed $20 and they could not get $20 in any way, shape, or form, nobody would give them that 20. They can't even, they've stood on the street corner and no cars passing by will give them enough money, then I would still approve the full $100 because it has to fulfill that need. And it just means they have 80 extra bucks that they can spend on whatever they would want. Doesn't matter to us. They get that full tier. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah.
A few other things. Supplemental assistance must goes towards a specific recovery gap. This is the hardest thing I think that many people have, because we always want to provide as much help as we possibly can, and in the back of our minds, knowing that supplemental assistance exists almost makes us want to give it out to every single client. As soon as their debit card runs out, clients will almost always ask, "Hey, I've used up all the money I've had. Can I have more?" But if it's not so specific, it's just a random, like, it's been a tough week. I think if I have more money, I'll be able to do more. Sorry, that doesn't really help. Plus, it has to be a specific recovery gap. It can't be for anything ongoing. So if somebody was in a hotel and they've used up all the money on the card, they still haven't found a new place to go, and they just want a few extra nights at a hotel, again, I can't use supplemental assistance on that, because once they run out of the supplemental assistance, they're still going to be the exact same situation they were beforehand, and that additional night at the hotel didn't help at all. Really, it'd be more appropriate to go to a shelter in that case. So has to be something specific towards one of those categories. They have to use their own resources first. We have to have given a referral. If no referrals were given on a case, again, it's an automatic decline. That's not something that any of us can change. That is a Red Cross policy, and fiscal review will mark a case uncompliant if we did not give any sort of referrals beforehand. And they need at least 2 recovery roadblocks. Why can't they resolve this on their own? Usually will not return to live in pre-disaster residence, and does not have insurance are the most common too. All right, any further questions with supplemental, or did I address everything?
I've had one question. So when I was doing my edge training, they gave us like scenarios, and they would ask, "Oh, this person has 2 roadblocks. Which supplemental tier will they put?" And then I was kind of confused on, if it was B or A. And like, if they had it's like one person had like 3 recovery roadblocks, I put C, tier C, but it was actually like, I don't know, it was just kind of confusing.
Okay, yeah, so one thing with the recovery roadblocks, that is, it doesn't tell you how much money can go out to a case. It only allows us to give any money. So they have to have, I think that is a little vague in the edge trainings. They have to have at least 2 recovery roadblocks for us to give any money whatsoever. As far as how much money we actually give, it's specific to the need. If they need a down payment on a home and the home is $300, but they have $100 that they can put towards it, we'll give $200 in that case.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what sort of recovery roadblocks they have. They could have every single roadblock checked, and we only give $100 because that's all that they need. They could have just the minimum requirement of 2, and we would give the 300 because that's what they need.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about the edge train being a little vague on that.
It's okay.
I think it tries to purposely mess you up by like making you assume that they're connected, but they're not really.
Yeah, I thought they're like really like directly connected. That's why I was kind of confused on that. But that made a lot more sense.
Okay. Thanks for asking. Let's move forward. So again, internal referrals, DHS, DMH, and DSC. Do you remember what DSC stands for?
Direct health services.
DSC.
Oh, DSC. DSC. Does I don't remember.
In relation to internal referrals, it is spiritual care.
Okay.
So, Red Cross is non-denominational, and that's actually a very common misconception. People think cross and they think, religion. They think Christianity, but the cross just comes from the Switzerland flag. It's just the colors inverted where we originated. So we are a non-denominational organization, but our clients still have very major faith-based concerns. So what we do have specialized volunteers that have very strict requirements in order to join spiritual care. They have to be a direct leader of some sort of religious congregation in any shape or form, but they will help people whether they be Christians, Jewish, Jehovah's Witnesses, or even Satanists. It doesn't really matter. We will assist anyone that's having sort of that same shake in faith. So ways of knowing if you should refer to spiritual care, it sounds very similar to mental health, where like they're, in serious stress. They can't focus on recovery because of the stress that they're under, but their main concerns end up being God related. Some key quotes that you might hear is, I feel like God's tested me and this is too much that I can bear. I thought God never puts too much on their table, but this is too much that I can actually handle. I feel like Job from the Bible. I feel like I'm being swallowed by a whale. Those are key clues. Health services is really obvious to know when to refer for them because it's anything that's going to impact their health that was impacted by the fire. Medication, glasses, dentures, medical equipment. Other than eyeglasses and dentures, which is not protected by, oh no, why am I forgetting the name? HIPAA. Glasses and dentures are not protected by HIPAA, but anything else, you cannot use the actual name of it that's going to lead to a diagnosis. You just say prescription or medical equipment, and you notify health services. You flag the NCAS, you do flag it for as needed. For mental health, you're going to look for the 3 R's. Have you already taken psych first aid?
Yes.
Do you remember what the 3 R's look like? I mean, I know it's on the slide, resilience, risk factors, and reactions, but do you know what those, some examples of those?
Resilience. It was like, if they have like no family, or if they have like if they're not good with coping skills, and like they're not like they have no resources to go on, like no support. Risk factors, if they witness someone like dying, or they're separated from someone, if they felt like their life is threatened. And then like reactions is when they've never been through it, so they have like an unexpected like reaction to stress. Like they've never been stressed out, but like this is like, they never felt this much stress, and like people are really concerned about their behavior.
Absolutely, spot on, perfect. Resilience is those factors that allow them to bounce back after trauma. Risk factors are those, the additional stressors that were pre-existing the disaster, and then the disaster is just the brick on the camel's back that end up breaking it. Reactions is how they're actually coping. Whenever you make a referral to DMH, you will call the DMH on call, and you'll tell them what one of the three R's you're witnessing and why you're referring it to, but you would not put that in the notes. You would just say referred case to DMH due to stress or something like that. But you wouldn't explain that in the narrative. There was something else I was going to talk about with DMH. Oh, reactions. That's something I want to talk about as well. So textbook, it's very simple when we're talking about reactions, like, oh, if they're stuttering, if they're having a hard time focusing, if they seem like this is too much for them, that's all obvious. But sometimes a bad reaction that needs DMH assistance is maladaptive coping mechanisms, like alcoholism or drug use. We are like one of our 7 fundamental principles is impartiality. We don't want to pass any judgments. We want to make sure people are getting the help that they need when they need it. Sometimes if someone's going through a disaster, they're going to try to find some way of relieving their stress in any way, shape, or form they can, and not always in the most healthy ways. I had cases reassigned to me, thankfully never from our region, but actually from one of our neighboring states, where in the narrative, it was saying, oh, this guy is just lying all the time. He doesn't follow through with any of his recovery. He doesn't even care about himself. He's his speech is slurred and he's drunk every single time that I call him. Really, we should just close this case as soon as we can. I was appalled when I read that, because that's not what we're here to do. Really, the most appropriate thing, if you're noticing someone is frequently intoxicated or seems like there's drug use involved, we want to get them in touch with DMH. They're going to talk with them about that dependency issue. Why are they actually using those dependencies? And how they'll help get them connected with some AA meetings or other ways of getting relief from that maladaptive coping mechanism so they can focus on recovery and move forward. After I got them in touch with DMH, they did start going, like they already were in like the 12 steps program, I think it was, and they just needed to get back onto it. Like this was too much. They resorted back to something that was familiar with them to cope with the disaster. And once DMH spoke with them, got them back on their plan, and they were working with the recovery plan again, and was far better. And we did have a successful recovery plan after that. So definitely watch out for that.
I had a question regarding DMH.
Yeah.
So when do you let them know, like, hey, if they're going through something like that, like, do I let the client know, like, hey, I'm gonna refer you to DMH, or do you just?
Very good question. With DMH specifically, we want to practice what I call sensitive referrals.
Okay.
Because there is a very strong connotation with DMH, with people just hating it, thinking like, you know what, I'm not crazy. I don't need a doctor for this. And that's not what it's about. It's about explaining, hey, this was a huge event, something that most people never have to experience in their lives. We do have some disaster counselors, calling them specifically disaster counselors, someone that's going to talk about the disaster itself. Hey, we do have disaster counselors that will be more than happy to talk about this more in depth. Will you feel comfortable speaking with them? So you do call them disaster counselors. You don't call them mental health or anything like that. And you do get their permission first.
Okay.
Good question.
I have a question. Like, I was doing the edge training, and like, if this person's gonna potentially harm himself or others, call 911 immediately. So if I call 911 in California and I'm telling, hey, there's an emergency in Arizona, is that gonna? I don't. Is there like a block or?
I mean, 911 will patch you through to the jurisdiction you need. But it would probably be more appropriate to do to Google that client's zip code and then
Okay.
police department.
Okay.
Also, if it does end up being a situation like that where you are scared for somebody's immediate health, and health and safety, you also want to try to keep them on the line and
Right.
do a three-way call with the police if they will allow you to, or with DMH and try to get them on the line as well. They, like, if it's a mental health issue, DMH are really good. They are licensed professionals that can handle it. Or get if it's safety, definitely get the police. Yeah.
Okay.
There is another edge training on that if you would like. It's called what is it called? Handling a difficult call.
Okay.
Good question. Really good question. And so this upcoming month, next week not next week, but on Monday, we are going to have a regional casework meeting that talks about DMH more and handling that sensitive referral. I should make that a topic about handling those difficult calls as well. Thank you. All right, external referrals. When you're researching external referrals, you want to familiarize yourself with that tool list. And these are the three things that you really want to get the best information on, the bare minimum: hours of operation, best times to contact, and what documentation is required in order for them to actually get approved. Because it would suck if they go to an agency and after getting there, they realize, oh, I need my birth certificate, but I haven't gotten that replaced yet, right? So definitely check that out. And then you do have to log all the referrals in the referrals/BSP tab in CAS. There is a quick tip on that in the SharePoint on how to do it, if you forget. Any other questions? We're definitely going to go over the 2-hour time window, but I'll try to speed things up.
No questions.
Okay. So adding the narrative. The most important thing about the narrative is that it is a historical document for caseworkers to refer back to, and allows any caseworker to step in case you have to leave. If you get sick one day, if you want to take a vacation, whatever have you, that narrative is how anyone will be able to assist the client without them having to repeat everything. For that reason, you always want to keep it professional and no personal bias. So you want to be brief, factual, impartial, and accurate while still describing what happened, and always document every interaction you have with the client, any referrals that you give, their recovery plan and what you're working towards, and whether or not you need to give them supplemental assistance as needed, any internal referrals, gaps in plan if you're aware of any, insurance coverage if you get aware of it. Never document personal opinions or speculation, like that example I told you where they're calling the guy a drunk. Confidential legal or medical information, or a record of what we actually gave them, like mass care items. Because technically, if it's a gift and we report on it, they're supposed to report that to the IRS, and they have to pay taxes on it, and we don't want to do that. Okay. Fatality. We are working in the disaster field, which means there are going to be cases of fatality. The thing is, though, we do have a specialized team that handles those cases. They are called our Integrated Care and Condolence Team. And if there is no ICCT caseworker available, you will be, the supervisor will talk with you first and see if you feel comfortable speaking with that case or those clients first. Fatality cases are marked with ICCT after the last name, but there are there are a lot of different training that goes in that is involved with being an ICCT caseworker. Like they have to understand the morgue system, the uh, walking a client through all the steps they have to do to prepare the body, transport it, and clients do get an additional $1,000 to help with all the funeral fees. So even if you go to your case list and you find out that you have a fatality case, still speak with the casework supervisor. Let them know we're not perfect. We are human, and sometimes that will slip through the cracks. It's exceptionally rare that's ever missed, but if it does, please be sure to notify a supervisor because we want to make sure that family is getting everything that they're entitled to, even if you feel comfortable with it. So some expectations of a caseworker. This isn't really pertinent to us since we're doing everything remotely, but you never enter an area if it looks unsafe. If you're ever hurt while volunteering, then notify the duty officer. Again, that's on the response schedule that I showed you a while ago. Possession of weapons is strictly prohibited in the workplace. Transporting clients is also strictly prohibited. Which you're in California, so I don't think you'll ever have the opportunity to transport clients anyway, and you never go alone. Professionalism. I do expect anybody from our workforce to abide by the 7 fundamental principles of the Red Cross and help support our mission and vision. I've alluded to our 7 fundamental principles a few times in this presentation. Adam, can you tell me what those 7 fundamental principles are?
Principles. Some principles. I'm not too sure. I'm sorry.
Any guesses?
It's on the. Is it regarding race, color, national origin?
Yeah, right there on that one. That is impartiality. Absolutely, our services are given no matter what sort of background they come from.
No matter where they're at. Disability, sexual orientation, citizenship. Oh, I know. Humanity, impartiality, neutrality, independence, voluntary service, universality.
Yep, you looked it up, huh?
I did. Sorry.
You're good. As soon as you see it, it kind of sparks in me like, oh, I've seen this everywhere, right? But humanity, absolutely. First and foremost, we are a humanitarian organization. Everything we do is for the good of the community. Impartiality, we make no judgment calls when it comes to someone's background. We're just here to serve. It doesn't matter to us where they come from. Neutrality, very similar to impartiality, but it just means we're not going to take a political stance on something. This harkens back to our origin story, where the American Red Cross got started during the Civil War, where there was an actual war on 2 different parts of the U.S. We didn't care what side of the war you were on. We were going out there into the battlefield, picking up wounded soldiers from either end and making sure they got medical attention. Same concept happens today. And I know, especially if you are someone that feels very strong about social justice and justice in general, neutrality can often feel like a slap in the face to the cause that you're trying to help. But really, we use neutrality as a shield in order to still move forward on the mission that we do. Whether it doesn't matter what sort of background someone has or what sort of political views someone has, we're going to move forward, and we're not going to allow that to stop us. That also means that if the government tried to stop us from assisting because it's against their political beliefs, it's we're still going to move forward. That's why we help non-citizens as well. Unity, we're all one Red Cross. Whether you're going to be working in disaster cycle services, volunteer international services, we're all going to work together to support those programs. Universality, whatever I teach you here should be the same anywhere in the Red Cross. So if you want to start volunteering with your local California chapter, you'll be able to take all the trainings I gave you and apply it there as well. Volunteer service, that one is my personal favorite. It just means that everything that we do here at the Red Cross, the workforce is doing of their own volition because of the mission that we all believe in. Even the staff, they're paid by salary, which means, I had no requirement of, having this class on a Saturday, but I wanted to because that was what you guys were respond would be the best one for you. So it's all driven by the people's want to move the mission forward. Which one did I forget? Independence. Again, we are not influenced by any outside influence. Everything we do is what we stand by for our mission. No political figure, no third party can give us money and lobby us to do something one way or another. It's still going to be our choice. Volunteer time expectation. We're not doing in-office casework, so those shifts don't really apply. Instead, everything's done by remote casework. You just tell us when you're going to do cases, and we'll put you on that schedule, and we release the weekly schedule saying when people are following up with their cases. The standard case load is 10, but if you need less, if you don't think that you can handle 10 cases, let us know, and we'll give you a reduced amount. At this time, we have such a strong casework team that really everyone's only having maybe about 5 cases instead of 10. We do have monthly meetings. It's the second Monday of every month at 11:30 a.m. Arizona time, 12:30 New Mexico time. This is done through Microsoft Teams. A reminder email is sent out 1 week prior. And again, we also have the Casework Social Hour, which is the third Tuesday of every month. Reporting hours. I know I already sent you an email about hours, so I'll skip this since we're running so late. Additional tools, you have if you go to the Casework and Recovery Planning Toolkit on the Exchange, you'll see all of these additional job tools. That gives you a little background information of what goes on. And of course, you have your own leadership. So for the Central Arizona, I still have Greater Phoenix on there. Chris Weiss is the chapter coordinator. She is amazing. She's actually my volunteer partner, and she really helps with everything going on with our chapter. Flo Hankin is our regional program lead. She's the one that actually helps organize all of our recovery services for Arizona and New Mexico. And I am the Arizona Recovery Program Advisor. Sandra is the program advisor for New Mexico. Any last questions, comments, concerns, or emotional outbursts?
I think that's good.
All right, I'll go ahead and end the recording. Nope, that's not it.